and it's a great honor to have you with us. And I look forward to the discussion. We'll wait till the media leaves. I want to thank you, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, are you angry at the Republicans who came out against the health care bill?
Disappointed. Very disappointed. I don't think it's dead, no, but I'm certainly disappointed. For 7 years I've been hearing repeal and replace from Congress, and I've been hearing it loud and strong, and then when we finally get a chance to repeal and replace, they don't take advantage of it. So that's disappointing. So I'm I would say I'm disappointed in what took place. It will go on and we'll win. We're going to win on taxes. We're going to win on infrastructure and lots of other things that we're doing. We've won and are winning the war, as you know, on the border. We're very much decimating ISIS. You can see that. You see that better than anybody sees it, the soldiers that are with us today. We've had a lot of victories, but we haven't had a victory on health care. We're disappointed. I am very disappointed because, again, even as a civilian, for 7 years I've been hearing about health care. And I've been hearing about repeal and replace. And Obamacare is a total disaster. Some states had over a 200% increase, a 200% increase in their premiums. And their deductibles are through the roof. It's an absolute disaster. And I think you'll also agree that I've been saying for a long time, let Obamacare fail, and then everybody's going to have to come together and fix it and come up with a new plan, and a plan that's really good for the people with much lower premiums, much lower costs, and much better protection. I've been saying that, Mike, I think you'll agree, for a long time. Let Obamacare fail. It'll be a lot easier. And I think we're probably in that position where we'll just let Obamacare fail. We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it. We'll let Obamacare fail, and then the Democrats are going to come to us, and they're going to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Or how do we come up with a new plan? So we'll see what happens. There's some other things going on right now as we speak. But I am disappointed because for so many years I've been hearing repeal and replace. I'm sitting in the Oval Office right next door, pen in hand, waiting to sign something, and I'll be waiting, and eventually we're going to get something done, and it's going to be very good. But Obamacare is a big failure, and it has to be changed. We have to go to a plan that works. We have to go to a much less expensive plan in terms of premiums, and something will happen, and it'll be very good. May not be as quick as we had hoped, but it's going to happen. Okay? Well, they were not disloyal. They had their own reasons. I was very surprised when the two folks came out last night because we thought they were in fairly good shape, but they did. And, you know, everybody has their own reason. But if you really think about it, you look at it, and we have 52 people. We had no Democrat support, which is really, you know, something that should be said. We should have had Democrats voting. This is a great plan for a lot of people. We had no Democrat support. We have 52 people. We had 4 no's. Now, we might have had another one somewhere in there, but essentially the vote would have been pretty close to, if you look at it, 48-4. That's a pretty impressive vote by any standard. And yet you have a vote of 48-4 or something like that, and a pretty impressive vote by any standard. And yet you have a vote of 48-4 or something like that, and you need more. It's pretty tough. So the way I look at it is, in 18, we're going to have to get some more people elected. We have to go out and we have to get more people elected that are Republican. And we have to probably pull in those people, those few people that voted against it. I don't know. They're going to have to explain to you why they did, and I'm sure they'll have very fine reasons. But we have to get more Republicans elected because we have to get it done. We got it passed in the House. We would have gotten it very much. Yeah, you can't use his head as a stand, right? We don't want that to happen. You're messing with the wrong guy here. So we want. I think we're going to do very well, actually, in 18. I would be not surprised if something were done long before that. But in any event, because the margin is so small, the majority margin is so small, we're going to have to go out and get more Republicans elected in 18, and I'll be working very hard for that to happen, okay? It would be nice to have Democrat support, but really they're obstructionists. They have no ideas. They have no thought process. All they want to do is obstruct government and obstruct, period. And in this case, think of it. So many good things, we didn't get one vote, and their plan has failed. And by the way, Obamacare isn't failing. It's failed. It's gone. So I think something's going to happen. We'll find out. Stay tuned. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. No. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Mr. President. The Majority Leader. One of the Senate's very first acts this Congress was to pass the legislative tools necessary to repeal Obamacare. We did so because the American people who had suffered for years under the failures of Obamacare were calling out for relief. Everyone knows about Obamacare's skyrocketing costs and its plummeting choices. Too often, however, this discussion seems to veer into the abstract. These are not just numbers on a page. These are the lives of real people. These are the men and women we represent, Americans who are hurting, middle-class families who deserve better than Obamacare's failures. We worked hard to provide them with a better way. We did so in the knowledge that this task would not be easy. We understood it would not come quickly, but we knew that it was the right thing to do, so we pushed forward anyway. I believe we must continue to push forward now. I regret that the effort to repeal and immediately replace the failures of Obamacare will not be successful. That doesn't mean we should give up. We will now try a different way to bring the American people relief from Obamacare. I think we owe them at least that much. In the coming days, the Senate will take up and vote on a repeal of Obamacare combined with a stable 2-year transition period as we work toward patient-centered health care. A majority of the Senate voted to pass the same repeal legislation back in 2015. President Obama vetoed it then. President Trump will sign it now. I imagine many Democrats were celebrating last night. I hope they consider what they are celebrating. The American people are hurting. They need relief. And it's regretful that our Democratic colleagues decided early on that they did not want to engage with us seriously in the process to deliver that relief. But this doesn't have to be the end of the story. Passing the repeal legislation will allow us to accomplish what we need to do on behalf of our people. Our Democratic friends have spoken a lot recently about wanting bipartisan solutions. Passing this legislation will provide the opportunity for senators of all parties to engage with a fresh start and a new beginning for the American people. I suggest the answer.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
Without objection.
Now, Mr. President, last night we learned that the current Republican health care bill lacks enough support to even reach the floor of the U.S. Senate. After numerous delays, false starts, false predictions, and 2 pulled votes, it should be crystal clear to everyone on the other side of the aisle that the core of the bill is unworkable. It's time to move on. It's time to start over. Rather than repeating the same failed partisan process yet again, Republicans should work with Democrats on a bill that lowers premiums, provides long-term stability to the markets, and improves our health care system. I heard the Republican leader this morning say that Democrats, quote, decided early on that they did not want to engage seriously, unquote, on health care. In the same speech, the Republican leader also admitted that the very first thing the Republican majority did this Congress was to pass reconciliation so they could pass health care on a party line vote. 50 needed, no Democrats needed. Early on, the majority leader told Democrats, we don't need you. We don't want you. Respectfully, I take issue with the idea Democrats didn't want to engage on health care. The majority leader admitted that he decided the matter for us when he locked Democrats out of the process at the outset. At the very beginning of this Congress, President Trump and Leader McConnell said, "Don't come knocking at our door on health care. We don't need you." Now that their one-party effort has largely failed, we hope they will change their tune. It seems like many Republicans are ready for a truly bipartisan effort on health care indeed. My friend Senator McCain has urged it quite strongly, saying, quote, "The Congress must now return to regular order, hold hearings, and receive input from members of both parties." And he said that while recuperating in Arizona. So that's how strongly he feels about it. Other Republican senators have made similar comments. But the Republican leader still plans to ignore their advice and instead plans on holding a proxy vote on a straight repeal of our health care law first. Make no mistake about it. Passing repeal without a replacement would be a disaster. Our health care system would implode. Millions would lose coverage. Coverage for millions more would be diminished. Our health care system would be in such a deep hole that repair would be nearly impossible. In fact, passing repeal and having it go into effect 2 years later is in many ways worse than the Republican health care bill that was just rejected by my Republican colleagues. It's like if our health care system was a patient who came in and needed some medicine. The Republicans proposed surgery. The operation was a failure. Now Republicans are proposing a second surgery that will surely kill the patient. Medicine is needed, bipartisan medicine, not a second surgery. We urge our Republican colleagues to change their tune. Passing repeal now is not a door to bipartisan solutions, as the majority leader suggested this morning. Rather, it is a disaster. The door to bipartisanship is open right now, not with repeal, but with an effort to improve the existing system. The door is open right now. Republican leadership only needs to walk through it, as many Republican members are urging them. The door is to accept the progress we've made in our health care system and work to improve it. The Affordable Care Act isn't perfect, but repealing all of the good things about the law will create such chaos that there will hardly be anything left to repair. Republicans don't need to wreak havoc on our health care system first in order to get Democrats to the table. We're ready to sit down right now. If Republicans abandon cuts to Medicaid, abandon huge tax breaks for the wealthy, and agree to go through the regular order, through the committees, with hearings, onto the floor, with time for amendments. That's how we perfect legislation here. That's how it's been done for 200 years. Almost inevitably, when you try to draft something behind closed doors and not vet it with the public, it becomes a failure. In this case, a disaster. So, again, our Republican colleagues don't need to wreak havoc on our health care system first in order to get Democrats to the table. We're ready to sit down right now. Again, if Republicans abandon cuts to Medicaid, abandon tax breaks for the wealthy, and agree to go through the regular order. The door to bipartisanship is open right now. Republicans only need to walk through it. And I'd remind my Republican friends that the CBO has already scored the idea of a clean repeal bill, and it would be a catastrophe. Listen to what nonpartisan CBO appointed, the head of CBO appointed by the Republican leader of the Senate, and the Republican leader of the House. Here's what CBO said. It would cause $32 million. Here's what CBO said about repeal. It would cause 32 million Americans to lose their insurance. Premiums would double, while cutting taxes for households with incomes over $1 million by over $50,000 a year. It would end Medicaid expansion with no grace period or option for states who like their Medicaid expansion and want to keep it. In many ways, it's just as cruel, if not crueler, to Medicaid as the Trump Care bill, in a different way. So I would expect the same senators who are concerned about Trump Care bill's Medicaid cuts will be equally concerned about what repeal and delay would do to Medicaid. Many of my Republican friends rejected roundly the idea of repeal and delay several months ago at the beginning of the year when President Trump first proposed it, and it seemed like that was what Republicans would do. Here are just some of the names back then who said repeal and then replace. Later, doesn't work. Here they were: Cassidy, Alexander, Collins, Corker, Cotton, Hatch, Isaacson, Moran, McCain, Murkowski, Paul. Well, I would tell those colleagues and all the others, the idea hasn't magically gotten better with age. It is still nothing more than a cut-and-run approach to health care that will leave millions of Americans out in the cold and raise costs on everyone: the young, the old, the sick, the healthy, working Americans, and middle-class families. Everyone will be hurt, but the very, very wealthy. Mr. President, every day that Republicans spend on trying to pass their now failed partisan Trump Care bill, every day they spend cooking up new tricks for members to get on a health care bill, is another day wasted. Another day that could have been spent working on real improvements to our health care system. Democrats want to work with our colleagues on the Republican side to stabilize the marketplaces and improve the cost and quality of care. And we want to do it via regular order, a process this body has used time and time again to produce consensus and historic legislation. The majority leader said in 2014 in a speech entitled "Restoring the Senate" that, quote, this is Mitch McConnell, "When the Senate is allowed to work the way it was designed to, it arrives at a result acceptable to people all along the political spectrum. But if it's an assembly line for one party's partisan legislative agenda, it creates instability and strife rather than good, stable law." I want to repeat that. These are the words of Mitch McConnell. I hope Leader McConnell is listening and remembers these words. He hasn't for the last 6 months, and it's only led to trouble for him and his Republican colleagues in the Senate. So let me read it again. 2014 speech, Restoring the Senate, author Mitch McConnell. "When the Senate is allowed to work the way it was designed to, it arrives at a result acceptable to people all along the political spectrum. But if it's an assembly line for one party's partisan legislative agenda, it creates instability and strife rather than good, stable law." Leader McConnell, I couldn't agree more. It's time to start over on health care. Abandon the idea of cutting Medicaid to give a tax break to the wealthy. Abandon this new repeal and run, and use the regular order to arrive at a result acceptable to people all along the political spectrum, as Leader McConnell once said. I dare say it would create a much better result for the American people as well. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.